Hey, Iris, do we need to stop sharing on our screen at this point in time? You tell me what we need to do.
Just keep sharing it, and we're going to start here in about a minute.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure I didn't mess you up.
All right. Thank you for joining us for the 7 Habits for Effective Farmers webinar series, Farm Safety and Stress Management. We're grateful to have Dr. Deborah Reed. She's known as the Kentucky-Tennessee Ag Nurse, and she will be joining us today as today's instructor. We appreciate the support provided by the USDA National Institute of Food and Agriculture and the Southern Risk Management Education Center to make this series possible. To help report the impact of this webinar, I will ask you to complete a very brief online evaluation of the session at the end. The link to the evaluation was included in the email with the link to join the session, and I will post it in the chat box for you at the end of the session. So a few housekeeping items. Please leave your microphones on mute and video off during the session. If you would like to locate the chat box right now, please type your name and location into the box to help me record attendance. You may use the chat box at any time during the session to submit a question. I am recording the session and plan to post it online in the event you would like to view it again or share with someone else. We know that people with written goals are significantly more successful than the people without. I want to encourage you to jot down some goals about how you can use the information during the session. If there's no questions at this time, let's dive into today's session, Farm Safety and Stress Management.
Well, good afternoon. I'm delighted to be here with you. This is a topic that's near and dear to my heart because I too am a farm girl from Central Kentucky. So if you detect an accent that is slightly not Tennessee, that's the Kentucky accent that's coming through. And all my family are farmers but me, so I can really identify with everything that I'm talking about today. I want to let you know that the most important thing on the farm is you and your family. And if you invest in you and your family up front, it'll help your bottom line, which is really important. So I've been asked to talk about a little bit what's going on in farming in Tennessee. You know, you've got about 66,000 farms across this state and a pretty good size, about 164 acres. But a lot of the folks in Tennessee are what I call bivocational farmers, and that is they hold more than one farm job. So you might be a teacher or a lawyer or a physician or whatever, but then you as my brother did for about 26 years, farm on the side. That just means you're doing double duty on everything, burning that candle at both ends. And farmers are a little bit older than, well, they're a lot older than the occupations across America. The average age of a farmer now is almost 60 years old compared to 42 for the general U.S. population. So we have a lot of risks that occur as we age, and we're going to talk about that a little bit. But you are part of a very valuable industry to the state of Tennessee, more than $3.5 billion. So when people come up to you and say, well, what's farming worth? You can say $3.5 billion. So a lot is riding for the entire state in this state's economy when you think about farming. What's so good about a farm? Well, I can talk for hours on this, but we'll keep this short. It's first of all, it's that shared and individual responsibility that you have as a family. I started working on the farm when I was very young, just with what we call chores. So there's also shared and individual income. There's an opportunity even for youth to make money on a farm. We do still have the benefit of having at least a little bit cleaner air than our urban counterparts, although that smog is getting to us too. And there's a community atmosphere about farming. In rural areas, it's just so nice. You're rubbing elbows with your neighbors all the time, and you come together in a lot of different ways. But at the same time, there's a lot of things that make farming dangerous. As a matter of fact, it's one of the most dangerous occupations in the United States. So as we look at this, we're always surrounded by our work because most of us live and work on the farms, and it's hazardous duty work. You can look at the bottom of that screen and see things that go around and will catch your clothing. There's animals. There's even ATVs and things like that. Inexperience, not just for the youth on the farms, but also for folks that are going into farming as a second career, or maybe just helping out a neighbor. Just because you're on a farm doesn't mean you're experienced with every kind of equipment or every kind of work that you need to do. And there is a level of physical and mental maturity that's required for farming. So you have to constantly assess, is this person really ready, both physically and mentally, to do this task on the farm? It's also a place of recreation because, hey, we don't have movie theaters out on the farmstead. We have four-wheelers like the little guy down in the left-hand corner. These are one of our leading causes of injuries and fatalities on farms these days. And if you are injured, it takes a while to find you and get you back to wherever your local hospital is. So just even thinking about getting out to where you need to be rescued, we lose that golden opportunity. It's called the golden hour. If it's more than an hour before you're rescued, you're much more likely to die from your injuries. And then we're around things that are unpredictable, all kinds of large animals. We can't read their minds. They don't care about ours. So a lot of times those animals will be gentle, you think, but perhaps a bee stings them or they get frightened, and the next thing you know, you're on the ground and under their hooves. And that machinery and equipment doesn't care at all. It doesn't care if it picks corn or your arms. So we have to always keep our machinery in good working order. Well, I don't mean for this to sound horrible because I am grateful for growing up on a farm for sure. But I also know now things I didn't know then, that it is one of the most hazardous occupations and that farmers are at very high risk for things like not just the injuries, fatal and non-fatal, but also for those more insidious things like noise-induced hearing loss, work-related lung diseases, all kinds of skin diseases, and then cancers that are associated with chemical use, inhalation from chemicals, or prolonged sun exposure. Now, let me emphasize that prolonged sun exposure because I've been in Tennessee for a week right now, and I've been exposed to way more sun than I need to be. And if you think that's good for you, it's really not. Over the long run, it'll get you. What are some of the top hazards in farming? Well, machinery and equipment, we've already discussed a little bit. And some of the large equipment that you might see more in Western Tennessee requires you to, sometimes that's called a header down there at the bottom of that big combine that's going along. Those get clogged up. You have to, take care of things yourself on the farm because nobody's going to be there to help you. Again, working with those large animals and maybe not having the proper way to pin them in and contain them. The environmental aspects, not just the sun, but that you can get mold after a bunch of rain and things like that. But then, people don't think about this one. It's those internal hazards, and I mean things like your decision making. And making the right decisions on the farm is so important. It is definitely an effective habit to double check yourself on your decisions and to make sure that you're focusing on the task at hand. Well, the leading causative factors and outcomes of all these doomsday things I've been talking about right now. So over on the left-hand column, we have what we're calling the causative factors. And on the right hand, those are the things that are the consequences. Falls are the number one injury-causing problem out on farms. This can be a fall from a hayloft. It can be a fall off a tractor. It can be a fall because the ground is frozen and you just tripped over frozen mud that's out there. All kinds of things can cause falls. Slippery surfaces will put you down on that ground and will fracture pretty much anything, arms, legs, necks. And then we have a lot of runovers. These can be runovers by tractors, even by ATVs, runovers by bulls. You not only get fractures then, you can get some crushing episodes. We did have a farmer in my community a couple of years ago that had a large roll bale on the front of his tractor. He got off to open the gate, and during that time, the tractor rolled forward and he died from a pinning of his body against the gate before he got it open, and he was asphyxiated. It was a horrible thing. So things that we don't think about, like setting a brake when you get off a tractor, can get you into trouble. Entanglements, a lot of farmers are missing particularly fingers. 1 out of every 10 farmers does have an amputation. So entanglement in that machinery, like I showed you in earlier slides, a lot of nasty lacerations that will cause infections. Even taking a breath on a farm. So inhalation, if you're using chemicals, you get a lot of respiratory irritation, and you can get things called silo fillers disease, which will come back and haunt you year after year. It's kind of like having a terrible case of the flu. And of course you can drown because there are lots of opportunities. There's a lot of water out there on the farms in different ways. Some's clean water and some's not so clean. And then contact injuries, burns, abrasions, and things like that. So we always have to make sure that we have on the proper clothing and that we try to, again, pay attention to what you're doing. That's the most important thing. Just a little recap here on some of the things. Some of these are my family members. My sister-in-law always, she drove a tractor that had a good sunscreen, but that tractor does not have a roll bar or a seat belt on it. So she was protecting her skin, but not the rest of her body. So that's a no-no. The auger to the top right has no guard shield to it, and you can get hung up in that. Anything, if you leaned over that to make sure it was working and you had on a hooded sweatshirt with a string, you're going right in there with it. A 15-year-old one time when I was making a presentation said, if it dangles, it tangles. And he's right. It doesn't matter what it is, be your hair or your shoestrings or whatever. Drowning can occur in dry places too. The one on the bottom left is a large grain wagon that's being filled, and you can get up in that grain and somebody opens the door at the bottom and down you go. My sister's on the bottom right, and she has a pretty good idea there. She is doing a little protection of her hair, but she has no respiratory protection. And as soon as that grain filler is opened over there, you won't even be able to see my sister. So you have to pay attention to what's important out there on the farm. And make sure when you're around animals that you try to keep them pinned, barrier between you and them. The fellow on the right's doing a really good job with his header gate. But, the person that's working on the horse there in the middle, they have no protection on whatsoever, and that animal's free to flail around anyway at once, and he'll land on the ground below it. My brother's trying to feed grain down there on the left, and he says his animals are gentle, but if they get irritated or very hungry, they can push him right over. So here's a few myths to think about when you're setting your goals. No, you cannot outrun a bull. You really can't. I'm in Tennessee, and I know I can't outrun a bear, but I sure know I can't outrun a bull. You can jump off the tractor if it starts to roll. Well, you can try, but chances are you won't land in the right place, so it's better to have a roll bar on the tractor. You cannot counterweight on the slope, whether it's a riding lawnmower or it's a tractor. Your weight makes no difference. Once you reach that tilt angle, you're going over, and it doesn't matter what you do at that point in time. And no, you cannot multitask safely. Thank goodness Tennessee now has a hands-free rule on their mobile devices. So I don't know if they're enforcing that or not, but I really like the rule that, people aren't supposed to be texting or looking at screens while they're in that car. But our brains are made to do one thing at a time, and it's not going to be rewired fast enough that you'll be able to do that safely. So one of the goals you might want to think about on your farm is to set a farm hazard walkabout. Whether you have a small farm or a large farm, these are really good things to do on a regular basis, at least twice a year. And do this with your family and your workers, not just yourself, because everyone needs to know what the hazards are and where to find the rescue equipment. So on your emergency response, make sure that your address is posted prominently at the entrance to your farm. If you have more than one entrance, make sure those are posted because so many EMS where I live right now, the response for 911 is funded by the landline phones, and we don't have those, so we're losing a lot of our technology for them to even find us out there in more remote areas. Make sure you have working fire extinguishers. Check those at least twice a year. And that you have first aid kits posted in various places. Those are up to date and people know how to use them. That's a good idea to get first aid training and also CPR training for people in your farmstead so that you all can take care of each other and have a communication plan. This is so important. particularly if you're out working by yourself on the farm. Have a check-in system so people know where you're supposed to be and at what time you're supposed to be showing up back home. Unfortunately, on farms, it's usually the spouse who finds their partner out in the field somewhere entangled or pinned or whatever. And there's ways we can prevent that with some good planning. If you have children on the farm at any time, be it your own or your grandchildren or whatever, make sure they have a safe play area that's enclosed, away from animals, out of the barn. Make sure they understand where they're supposed to be, and keep your eyes on them at all times, because they are quick little critters. They will escape in a heartbeat. Again, with your equipment, you need to check to make sure all the shields are in good working order. Your tractors have roll bars. This might be an item, if you have an older tractor that you've inherited from somebody, you might want to look into getting that retrofitted. Put it in your budget. If you have these things in your budget, it's just like your house. You have to put so much every year for house maintenance. You need to put it in there for your farm equipment maintenance and your building maintenance. And you can put an extra line in there and say, oh, I'm going to put an extra $500 this year into something to upgrade my farm to make it safer. Make sure all chemicals are in their original containers and they're kept under lock and key at all times. Make sure you mark on the outside of the building, wherever those are, so that if there is a fire, that the EMS will know what's in there, so innocent people don't get hurt during that. There's a lot of good money out there if you need to upgrade your stock handling facilities and things like that. You can usually talk to your extension agent and find out what monies are available. So again, your bottom line can profit from this. Personal protective equipment, I always tell people to store that next to the equipment. In my house, I store the can opener with the cans. So if I'm going to be using something that requires a respirator or something like that, I make sure that is stored in a clear plastic bag, a Ziploc bag with the appropriate cartridges or whatever needs to be. So you've got it right there at hand, because you'll use it if it's there. If you have to go someplace else and get it, people say, oh, I don't need it, it's just 5 minutes. It won't matter, but it does matter. So that's the farmstead, but now let's take care of you. So make sure that your clothing is not all baggy and everything. So remember, if it dangles, it tangles. Pull back that hair and secure it. I don't know of any farmers that wear ties, but even things like that can get you in trouble. So you just have to make sure that you're dressed appropriately for that. Have your hearing protection. Stick those little earplugs in your pocket. Make sure you wear them. And yes, they'll even go through the washer and dryer and still work. Sunscreen is so essential, particularly in the South. Apply it liberally and often. And remember, in the winter, you can also get a sunburn, believe it or not. So you need to apply that sunscreen in the winter also if that sun is shining. We talked about respirators. There are many different kinds, so make sure you have the appropriate kind of respirator. That takes more time than what we have to talk about today, so we won't spend a lot of time on that one. And I will tell everybody that's married, trade in those gold and platinum wedding bands for a silicone wedding band. They're little stretchy things. You can get them at Walmart now. You can buy a fancy one if you want. But the beautiful thing about these is if you're entangled, if you're caught on something like my nephew was when he was jumping down from a wagon, always a bad idea, by the way, but he caught his wedding band and he tore his finger off. So not only did his marriage suffer, but he lost his finger after a bunch of surgeries, which I don't know, it cost thousands of dollars trying to reattach this finger. Finally, he just said, just take it off. So, now he's walking around with those 9 fingers. He has a hard time bidding at some auctions now. But a silicone wedding band makes a pretty good little Christmas gift. Christmas is coming, so you can invest in that. Make sure you have your flu shot, your pneumonia shot, and your tetanus and diphtheria shot. These can all be had at your local health department. Won't cost you a dime. Go get them. Make sure you drink lots and lots of water all year long. Not these power drinks. These energy drinks are horrible for you if you're on a farm. It's just plain old God-given water. Take rest breaks, because fatigue is one of the leading causes of injury on the farm. And then all of this is probably stressing you out by now, and farms will stress you out too. Farms are great places to grow up, but it has its own types of stress to it. So the next thing we're really going to talk about is stress. And there are three types of stress. One is called distress, and that's what people usually think about. And that's where the stress is beginning to bother your mind, it's bothering your body. It can become so bad that it feels like you're in a state of danger or just a desperation. You know, I just don't know what to do anymore. That's distress. So it can actually cause you physical pain too. Your body is fearfully and wonderfully made, and it will tell you to pay attention to it. If you don't, it will scream at you to pay attention to it until literally you are sick because of the stress. And we'll talk about a couple of examples as we go through. But it can also cause you to be, if anybody's had a panic attack, that's distress to the hilt. Your body reacts because we produce certain chemicals in our bodies when we're under stress. And if these accumulate, then they become more harmful than good to you. However, there is a eustress, and that's Latin, eu means sweet. So there's a sweet spot there. Stress that's healthful and gives you the feeling of fulfillment, something you've just enjoyed doing, like I really enjoy talking to you right now. So when I finish with this, I'll go, whew, that's over. But then I'll feel really good for a few minutes about, oh, maybe somebody got something out of this today. So we've all known periods of time where we do feel fulfilled. What I really want to focus on today, though, is to learn how to de-stress. And that's just get a little bit of relaxation, not to the point where you're going to sleep. So those of you who are asleep out there right now during my presentation, you can wake up, you can go back to sleep later. But I want you to kind of stop feeling the overwhelming effects of stress. Why are we even talking about this? There are some things going on out there in farming right now that we'll talk about in a minute that really are overwhelming a lot of farmers with stress. So this is one of the hot topics right now. And I want you to think about your goal setting and how you perhaps will de-stress on a daily basis, because that's the best way to do it. As I said, stress isn't always a bad thing. Matter of fact, if you don't have stress, you're dead. So there is good stress out there because we don't like the alternative. It's just simply the body's response to the changes that are happening to you, to the both external and internal things that you're concerned about. The eustress, the sweet stress, is actually, it can be life-changing for you. It feels exciting. It improves your performance. If you're out in the yard and you come up on a thing of, what are those, yellow jackets, let me tell you, you want a little bit of stress in your life because you want to get away as quickly as possible. So you want, you're excited, all right, but in a bad way. So you want to have enough adrenaline. We talk about that. You get that rush, your heart rate goes up and you go fight or flight. I am going to fly away from these things because you don't want to fight a bunch of yellow jackets. So that's the good thing. You get what you need and then that stress is gone though. And your body goes, ooh, that's over. The problem comes in is when you get trapped into some kind of a situation, be it short or long term. Let's say if you're caring for a dying parent, you have a lot of stress. And then when you get to the very end of that, I'm a former hospice nurse, so I can talk about this. You get to the very end of that and you think, I'm glad I did all that, but I was under so much stress. It takes a toll on your body. You have to give yourself permission to recover from that. In farming, we have a lot of different stresses. We have too much rain. We don't have enough rain. We have financial downturns. We have tariffs. I could go on and on, but you would get so stressed out. So what you want to do is you have to learn on a daily basis how to rid yourself of these, what I call toxins in your life, because it will lead to mental or physical problems if you don't. Because when we're under prolonged stress, our body produces a hormone called cortisol. You may have heard of that. You may have heard your healthcare provider saying, you've got too much cortisol. We've got to get that level down. Otherwise known as triglycerides, cholesterol, any of these ringing a bell with you? It's your body's reaction to stress. Part of this is genetic. Yes, I admit to that. But part of that we can control. So over time, what happens with cortisol is it damages the interior of your blood vessels. Your blood vessels are really just a plumbing system, a closed plumbing system. So you want them to remain clear of any and all clogs, right? So the cortisol begins to build up, so the interior of your blood vessels becomes more and more narrow, and that's the basis for hypertension, otherwise known as high blood pressure. It's really just as simple as that. What we know now about cholesterol, though, it doesn't just impact your blood vessels, it also deposits in your brain. And so the latest research that's coming out is showing that it has a role in dementia and other neurological conditions. This is very, very alarming. Remember back at the first, we talked about how farming is already such a hazardous industry to be in. And now you couple that as we begin to age with early onset Alzheimer's, early onset dementia, and some other neurological conditions because of that stress that you're under, and you have a perfect storm for disaster. So the bottom line is this excessive cortisol does more harm than good. The adrenaline is good for you when you need to escape the yellow jackets, but over time, that adrenaline, epinephrine, other hormones create this cortisol. It deposits in various places in your bodies, and it'll come back to haunt you. I'm going to give you just a little case example here about my brother. I use my family for examples all the time. They know this, and they're all farmers but me. So my brother was under extreme stress a few years ago, both on his farm and because of some political situation in his county. And he was trying to do a whole lot of different things in the middle of winter. He went up to my mother's farm where he had a heifer, a young cow that was calving for the first time. He always watches those cows very carefully. The calf was delivered. It was fine. He remembers nothing about that event. When he came home, his wife realized that something was off because he didn't remember they had sold a cow earlier in the week. And they took him to the hospital thinking he was having a stroke. And by the time they finished all of his workup at the emergency room, they did all the follow-ups, all the CT scans and everything else. The neurological consult said, what you've suffered is called global transient amnesia. And I had really never heard of that. And we're like, what caused this? And he said, you've been under too much stress, and this is your body's reaction to it. His medical bill was around $15,000 for this. Something that could have been prevented had he have said, no to some things that he was trying to get done for other people during that time. And the thing now, though, he's concerned he'll never get that memory back, but they're concerned in his family that this may happen again. So now not only is he worried and have more cortisol secretion, so does his wife, so does his son. So you see, it doesn't just happen to you by yourself when you don't take care of yourself. It happens to your family. So it's really important that you pay attention to your body. And when you're starting to feel this distress, you need to do something about that. This is just another quick schematic way, and I know that this is being recorded, so you can look at this later, but to show the effects of stress, this cortisol, which is produced in your adrenal cortex, we won't go into physiology, but over time it does increase your blood pressure, your blood sugar, think of diabetes here. You're more susceptible to coming down with the flu or other diseases because it's an immunosuppressive. C-reactive protein has been linked to all kinds of problems. You keep that going over time, and you're either going to get a diagnosed malady from it, or you're going to die from it. I'll just be frank about this. And for those of you who are carrying a lot of weight around your middle, a lot of that is due to stress because cortisol produces fat, and it's the kind of fat you can't get rid of. And I don't care what they say about belly burn, whatever this is that they try to sell you on TV. It's going to burn all your belly fat. It will not do that. So this leads to something called metabolic syndrome, and you're more susceptible for early death. So a lot of information you probably didn't know, but I'm a nurse. I have to share that with you too. The big key is down there called relaxation. How do you get your body back to where it's supposed to be, where it says, oh, I really do like living after all. This isn't so bad. And then the other thing is, Tim's sitting over to my right going, turn your phone off. We're going to get to that. Absolutely turn that phone off. But the link here I want to give you is the link between stress and safety. They are so closely linked. They have everything to do with one another. Because if you have increased stress, you have decreased attention. Decreased attention will lead to injury. If you have increased stress, you're going to make poor decisions. Not only is this financially a disaster, but it will lead to increased injury. Oh, have you heard of people that pull into businesses because they thought they put the car in reverse, but they put it in drive instead? They're not paying attention. And sometimes it's because they're running late to something or whatever. Increased stress always leads to increased injury. And it also leads to delayed healing. So if you are injured, you don't even heal as fast. So bottom line is, take care of the stress. We have signs on the farm for everything, don't we? Except for ourselves. So we take care of everything else and we warn everybody else about external things. Just remember when you look in the mirror in the morning to say, the first thing I need to take care of this morning is me. That's all you have to say. That'll get your attention for it. So we have, again, as I said, so many different stressors on the farms here lately, and it does wear us down to where our positive thoughts can get cluttered up with all the negative things that are going on. So yes, turn off talk radio, turn off all negativity, make a concerted effort every day to think positive. I know that's tough to do. And well, you're not in this position, Debbie. So actually, everything in our life, no matter what job we have, has its own set of stressors. We all have to make a real concerted effort every morning to look in that mirror and say, it's going to be a good day. No matter what happens, it's going to be a good day. Sounds simple, but I'm telling you, it works. If you don't do this, you are likely to head down the wrong road. And many, many farmers have not taken care of themselves. And what happens is we also have one of the highest suicide risk of any occupation. There's been conflicting reports out there from the CDC about who really has the highest rate. I don't care who has the highest rate. I can tell you that one death is one death too many. Suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem in your life. But what happens is if you don't attend to this stress on a daily basis, you lose hope. When you lose hope, this is the only thing a lot of people see, particularly in the oldest group of farmers who can no longer do the work that they love. So older farmers are more than 2 times likely than younger ones to commit suicide, or the proper term now is to die by suicide. No matter how you say it, it's not something that needs to happen to any family. So an ounce of prevention, and I'm trying to tie 2 messages together here. So get that stress reduced. The pig on the left, maybe next time I'll use a little sunscreen, because look what happens if you don't, people. It's not good. And they're not, I'm not talking about sunscreen here, although we did earlier. Take care of that stress before it takes care of you. Stress busting. So your goal is going to be what? Address your stress every single day, preferably in the morning. And there are other ways that you can do that other than just saying that to yourself. If you just begin each day by stretching, long, slow stretches will help lower the stress level in your body. It also helps those of us who have arthritis. So, it's a win-win situation. This is one of the ways you keep your farm working safely, because it will help you in so many ways. This has become so popular, something I just wrote up one day trying to use a little acronym. But honestly, if you take 5 slow, deep breaths, it will lower the cortisol level in your body. It actually changes the chemical composition of your blood. So that costs you nothing. But they have to be 5 slow, deep ones, because if you do them fast, you hyperventilate, pass out. That's the negative outcome there. But then you will be, you'll be breathing slowly for a little bit after that, but I don't recommend it. 7 hours of sleep. Now, some people can go on 5 and do fine. Most people need the 7 hours, and you need short naps. Short naps are restorative. They will help you be more productive. I guarantee you will have less injuries if you take a short nap after lunch, because your body's just built that way. Exercise. If you're a farmer, every farmer thinks they get enough exercise. That is a myth. You need to actually put that pedometer on, get your 10,000 steps, and then get that heart rate up, and not by trying to outrun a bull. Exercise mentally and exercise your faith, whatever your faith may be. We all have something that we believe in. So go to that source, exercise that daily. And that positive attitude will take you so much further than a negative one. Get away from negative people. Sometimes that means literally. Again, turn off that talk radio because it's all negative. But talk is a good thing. If you talk out your situations with a trusted friend, and I don't care who that is, it can be your dog. But actually talking about things and verbalizing, journaling, writing things down actually helps transfer that stress from your body to something else. Now, we don't want to transfer our stress to our friends, obviously, but get someone who understands you and talk it out with them. There is no shame in going to someone who you can talk it out with that you pay, meaning a counselor, a psychologist. That is a good thing, a good step to take. These people know how to help you reconstruct and become more positive. They can help you problem solve. So do that if you need that. You cannot help someone else without helping yourself. And this can be as simple as, I was at the mall yesterday. There was a young man there. He's a Down syndrome. He was trying to get a Coke and he couldn't figure things out. I put the money in the machine. He was so happy that I helped him get his Coca-Cola. It doesn't take anything big, but it will make you feel so good. So make it your goal to help one other person every day, and then eat right. This means fruits and vegetables, and it means low protein at night. So if you want a ribeye steak sandwich, have it during the middle of the day. Don't have it right before you go to bed because that's bad for you. And it's okay to have a piece of cheesecake. So treat yourself once in a while. So you just need to build some of these stress reduction things into your risk management plan, both your financial risk management plan and your body's risk management plan. And again, make it a line item in your budget and on your calendars. Get that vacation every day. Just write in there, we're going to take $500 and we're going to take a weekend somewhere. It can be simple. It can be tent camping, but you need to get off that farm because if you stay on it, you're going to see your work you're not doing. Make sure you take care of that equipment. That'll help you save time and energy, take the stress off of you. Regularly schedule downtime into every day because things will happen. And if you're already booked to the hilt, you cannot squeeze one more thing in. Preventive maintenance of yourself, just like you have for your equipment. Please do the preventive maintenance. It's good. Remember that the best laid plans that you make are going to go awry. So that's why some of these things are so important. A write it down list. And this is really good at night because sometimes you lay down and things just start going through your head for what you need to do the next day. Write it down. You don't have to lay there awake trying to remember till the next morning. You can lay your head on your pillow and go to sleep. Have alternate plans, an A and a B list. If it rains tomorrow, I'm going to do this other thing instead of what I'm planning to do. Cross off your to-do list. Oh, what great joy we have in crossing off the to-do list because it's one of those positives. I got this done. And you can look back on your week and say, oh my gosh, when I thought I did nothing, look what all I got done. And it is okay. And I highly encourage you to just say no. Go back to being 2 years old. You were good at it when you were 2. You said no to everything when you were 2 years old. Get back to that. Sometimes you have to say no to people. When the stress overwhelms us, we'll do things. So again, talking it out, professional assistance. What about pharmaceutical intervention, also known as things like medication? That's okay. And particularly for short-term use, sometimes you need that to get through some really, really tough times that you're having. It's all on the table. It's all acceptable because we all need a little help now and then. Farmers think they can do everything by themselves, and sometimes they get into a deep ditch and they just can't get turned back around. If you allow someone else to help you, you're actually helping that person. And I think this guy needs a little help here, maybe from a large tow truck by this time. But we get into situations sometimes we don't realize it's going to be as bad as they are. So it's okay. And I would encourage you to let other people help you. They want to. Don't deprive them of that. And yes, it is every day a balancing act in our lives. And, it all sounds easy when I'm just doing a slide presentation. It's not so easy in real life, but it's all a balancing act. It will all work out. This is not the balancing act. This is not a Tennessee couple. nor is it a Kentucky couple. But obviously this guy has been, just like any good farmer, he can make do with what he has. Probably not the best use of your spouse. And certainly he needs to do a little goal setting and some preventive maintenance on that tractor. So that's our presentation for this time. And I know that you probably got some questions or whatever. I do have a Facebook page that I just love to post little snippets on. I don't post very often. I'm not very good at it, actually, but I don't let it stress me out. But we do post things on there, little hints and things that other people have found helpful. So I encourage you to join our Facebook site. And I do want to say, too, before we get to this one, I'm going back for a minute. My time here, I'm actually on the University of Tennessee campus today, and my time here is being sponsored by the Tennessee Beginning Farmer and Rancher Program and Tennessee Agribility. And these are wonderful programs. I would encourage you to contact either of those programs and let them help you to learn some real life solutions, too. If you're a farmer that has any kind of a disability, this is a resource. It's free. You need to access this. It will relieve a lot of stress in your life. If you're a beginning farmer, which is a farmer that's been in the occupation 10 years or less, then they have some classes that can help you to learn how to do your farming better early on, and that will relieve your stress. So I appreciate my colleagues here at UT. And now we'll go to this one because I know Iris wants you to complete that evaluation. So Iris, I'll turn this back over to you now.
Thank you, Dr. Reed, for sharing this really important information with us. When you were talking about releasing the stress, I was doing that like 5 slow, deep breaths, and it kind of made me feel good because I got a little bit stressed from this webinar. But,
I'm so sorry. All right, so maybe everybody on the seminar needs to take the 5 slow, deep breaths.
Well, do we have any questions? Right now I'm looking into the chat box and we don't see any questions. So if you do, just type your question in the chat box.
Maybe they all got so relaxed they just went to sleep, and that's a good stress reliever, so I don't feel offended on that.
Yeah, that's a good impact right there. All right, I guess we don't see any questions so far. And thank you, Dr. Reed, again for the wonderful session. And we hope everyone will join us next month when we learn about succession planning. And that's our last session of the webinar series, 7 Habits. We appreciate you being with us here today and ask you once again, please complete the brief online evaluation at the link. All right. And thank you, everybody. Thank you, Dr. Reed.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, and stay safe and healthy out there. Bye.
Bye.